I'm ready.
Okay. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. This is
Yeah.
the Timmy Tom Show, the
It
first one
is.
of the new year of 2021.
I know. And in fact, we have a special announcement. Wait for it.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Boom. Welcome to the Timmy Tom Show, episode 11 for Freedom Friday, January 1st, 2021.
2021. Gosh, when I was a little kid, I never thought 2021 would come about. I figured we'd all be living on Mars by 2021 or something.
Everybody kept saying when I was a kid, by 2020, we're going to have flying cars like the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Well, they actually have a flying car, I think, in Germany. Street legal now but
Me too. I've seen the car that actually unfolds. You drive it out of your garage, it unfolds the wings. You drive it on the street, it does take off and flies in the air, and then you can land it and fold up the wings into the car.
Yeah, it has a helicopter propeller that goes.
Yeah, I used to have a hat like that in the 50s. Okay.
I bet you it didn't get off the ground though.
Not very far. If I jumped, I was doing a lot in those days.
Yeah. I saw something yesterday that said we could have, commercial drones flying pretty soon here, delivering to us, kind of like Amazon, like you get your Amazon package delivered to you.
Yes.
Yeah. So very, very interesting stuff in the future. Seems that technology is just getting more and more advanced, but if there's one thing that remains the same,
and what is it?
That's Jesus.
Well, yes, absolutely. That is the same.
Yeah.
That's great because you can rely on him. He says that he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Yeah, it's Hebrews 13:8 says just that. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, in this era of life that we're in now, with things that change so quickly and bring all kinds of unusual circumstances that we need to deal with, the more things that we have that are constant, that we can rely on, the better off we are.
Yeah.
I like having someone who's constant, that I always know will be doing and saying and exercising the same things day after day after day.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you have somebody who's constant, it helps develop faith.
Well, it
helps
does.
Develop a certain confidence that they're always going to be around. What they say I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
And you grow also. And we have the absolute best God, because he's the only God, but he never changes. His laws don't change. His statutes, his character, his truth doesn't change at all, and his love doesn't change.
Yeah, that's the great part. Well,
Yep.
The year that we've been through, we had a lot of changes, things that have never happened in my lifetime, and maybe things that have never happened in this country before. We've gone a long ways away from some of the founding ideas that are in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I want to remind myself of, and maybe remind others of, is some of the things that the founding fathers put in the Constitution. And that's one of the reasons that we do this Freedom Friday, is to remind ourselves of what the founding fathers put down for the basis of this country, what kinds of principles they laid out to say, these are the principles we think the country ought to be governed by, how that has produced in the last 250, 60, 70 years, the most unusual country in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're principles I think we ought to stick with.
Yeah, and we talk about the guiding force, the guiding principles behind what they wrote, that it was their faith in God, their faith in Christianity that led to the creation of these type of documents and the great country we have right now, the freedoms that we enjoy.
And one of the things that saddens me is that many people don't know that, have not been taught that, and have not been in a position to read the actual letters and things that the founding fathers said publicly, for example, George Washington's inaugural address, if you read the private diaries, the copies of the diaries and the letters that they sent to each other and the things that they said in public, you'll see very quickly that they were guided by biblical principles in almost every single case. And specifically, they were guided by what God and Jesus have said in the Bible.
Oh,
You know,
completely.
we talked in a previous time, I mentioned that the first part of the very first amendment to the Constitution was freedom of religion, because they felt that that was something that should be honored above all things. And that's why it's the very first thing that they talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we think the Christian religion is the very best religion, but we're not going to force anybody to do that. In fact, we're going to make it so you can practice any religion you want.
Yep.
And the government does not have any right to prevent you from doing that.
Yeah.
The second thing that they said that they thought was the most important thing was the freedom of speech, the freedom for you to say.
Mm-hmm. And freedom of speech means that you are able to listen to, and that even things you disagree with. So, for example, if you are saying something and I disagree with you, it doesn't give me the right to cancel you like today.
Right.
Right. I have a platform. I can say whatever I want. That's freedom of speech.
Right. And
regardless of if someone likes it or not.
Yeah. Well, they thought that was very important, that no one's speech should be censored.
The free interchange of ideas.
The free interchange of ideas. Now, it doesn't mean you have to listen to somebody.
No.
You have the choice and the freedom to say, okay, I heard what you started to say, and I don't think I want to go there, so I'm not going to listen to it.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to do that. You're going to build yourself a fairly narrow life by doing that, but you're welcome to do that.
Yeah.
But the founding fathers said no agency, governmental, private, whatever, should be in the position that it stops anyone from hearing what someone else has to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought that was a very important privilege.
Yeah.
And very right.
Well, those first two freedoms mentioned in the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment are by far the most important, because they're the freedoms that hang on everything else.
Yeah.
And in fact, you read George Washington's part of his journal entries, and going back, because I know you mentioned it, he says in his prayer journal, he wrote this. He said, "Bless, O Lord, the whole race of mankind, and let the world be filled with the knowledge of thee and thy Son, Jesus Christ. I beseech thee to defend me this night from all evil, and do more for me than I can think or ask, for Jesus Christ's sake, in whose most holy name and words I continue to pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." That doesn't seem like the type of guy who's a deist or not a religion, doesn't know about Jesus or anything like that. This is the type of, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. He's not a typical politician or a typical president, and yet he was not different than the majority of the founding fathers. The majority of the founding fathers would say exactly what George Washington said, and they believed the same things that George Washington believed. And we need to recognize that in this country.
Yeah.
We need to say, wait a minute, these people founded the greatest country in the history of the world based on these understandings and these principles. We ought to take a look at them. And I unfortunately have to say we need to look at them now, because the first two freedoms are being challenged and being taken away by governments and by mega businesses in this country.
Yeah, it's big tech and governments. Go ahead.
If you agree that we should censor and not let Christians or conservatives or any other group talk, or that you shouldn't have the freedom to exercise your religion because of governmental regulations for health or safety or whatever reason, if you think that's right, that's great, as long as the people who agree with you are the ones in power. But if you adopt that point of view, then whoever is in power gets to make the rules.
Yeah.
The
And it's, and
Constitution was established so that no matter who is in power, the rules will not change.
and that's what uh, the fight for this nation is. I mean, this is what we've seen in the past couple months with the election and the ongoing election. Trump, January 6th is a very important date. January 5th, also, we have the Georgia Senate races and the
Yes.
runoff there that we need to be praying for. And also what's going to happen for the entire election. There's some very important things going on. And you have powers that be that want to silence and not allow people to speak. And it's very interesting that why would you not allow free speech? I mean, the first thing that these tyrannical governments have censored when they took over, like in other countries like North Korea, China, Russia, USSR, all that kind of stuff in history,
Germany
was
of
that
World War
it
II.
was the church.
Yeah, they censor the
And
church and they take
yeah,
away free speech. They say you
exactly.
can only say what we're going to tell you you can
Yeah,
say.
you
You can
can still be a church, but you can only speak well of the party, of
that's
the establishment.
that's
You
right.
can't proclaim that Jesus alone is Lord.
Well, most countries in the world don't want to proclaim that,
Yeah,
and that's fine. They don't have
yeah.
to proclaim it. But in our
But
country, which was founded on that, we have the freedom and should continue to have the freedom for us individually to proclaim that.
I completely agree, and that's why we need to pray and vote and hold our leaders accountable and be a well informed citizenry.
You know, I was talking to a young person just the other day who said to me, uh, most of what we get for information is from social media, and we see a 10-second clip which tells us something about how we're supposed to feel or act, and we never look beyond that to see if there's any other information that we need to know before we make a decision about something.
Yeah,
And what that leads to is freedom of choice does not exist. You don't have freedom of choice unless you know what the choices are.
well, you need all the information to make a well informed decision, and
That's right.
you can't get that through a 10-second clip all the time. So uh, that actually is a good segue because a couple of things that for those of you who are listening that we want to tackle this year coming up, we want to do a couple episodes on the Bill of Rights
Mhm.
and go more in depth into that, all the way from the First Amendment all the way to the 10th Amendment. Um, do a couple episodes on that. We want to do some episodes on choice and personal freedom and responsibility.
Yeah,
hmm And how
yeah.
personal freedom and responsibility go hand in hand. As
You
some
know,
people think that freedom is I can do whatever I want, when freedom is really the freedom to do the right thing. You have the ability to do the right thing.
it is. And you know, God is very wonderful. He has given human beings freedom of choice. God doesn't force anybody. God doesn't force anybody to
Right.
accept his principles.
No.
He may encourage you, he may bring circumstances into your life that would urge you to relate to him, but he doesn't force anybody to relate to him. Now, there have been people in the history of the world who have forced people to relate to all kinds of things, God and everything else. God himself doesn't do that. He
Right.
invites, but he doesn't force. But as Tim said, if you don't know what the choices are and don't know some of the results of individual choices, how can you possibly make an informed and good decision about things?
Right.
Anyway, one of our goals is we don't want to force you to believe any particular thing. We want to give you as much information as we can give you about choices and about consequences of different kinds of choices. But you make the choice, you make the decision. You're the boss.
Yeah.
We want you to make things that we believe are really good,
hmm
but it's the choice is yours. So
Yeah.
this is to stimulate you. It's not to force you, but it's to stimulate you to do the stuff that you need to do.
Yep.
I could tap dance, I'd do that and
To
use
to
that
to
to stimulate you to do
to
something.
go to stimulate you to go beyond the surface.
That's it. To go beyond the surface.
Yeah. And then we want to do something on truth.
Ooh,
Truth is not lacking today. People's understanding of the truth is lacking.
right.
God's truth is everywhere.
Well,
So
it is, yeah,
mhm.
truth is revealed all over.
Yeah,
If
it is.
you're willing to look at it, and if you know enough about truth to say, oh, I can see that that is the truth.
Yeah.
You know nothing about truth, or if you have bought into the idea that there is no truth, all truth is relative. What's true for you may be true for you, but it's not true for me.
It's
Then
sure
it's,
good thing that 2 plus 2 wasn't relative to the people who built the first spaceship.
well, that's true.
It would have blown up.
But truth in itself is that which is
And
absolutely
it's in accordance with fact or reality.
in accordance with fact or reality.
That's the Webster's dictionary
Oh, that's
definition.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. We should get
So
a dictionary definition in this.
yeah, so those are some of the topics that we want to cover, and we're excited for that. We have some more announcements coming, but what can give our listeners one piece of advice, and then I'll do the same, that they can go into 2021 with.
You know, that's good. Thank you, Tim, for that. 2021 holds all kinds of hazards and situations that may not be fun. As I look ahead, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I can sort of imagine things that could happen. But there's something that uplifts my spirit. And it's a quote from the Bible. And it says, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it."
Mhm.
See, that's a choice. I will rejoice and be glad in it. God made the day, but I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. When I do that, when I think about that, then I start looking at the day differently. I don't look for all the terrible things that could or might happen in the day, but I begin to look for the things that are joyous and full of good cheer and lift my spirit up, because it's the day that God has made, and
Mhm.
I've chosen to rejoice and be glad in it. Uh, Try that. When you start out the day, say, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." And you'll find that there are things that will lift your spirit up, things you can rejoice, things that you can be glad about.
Yeah.
And it'll be a variety of things, maybe different for different people, but some of the things will be the same. Your relationships will be better. Your health will be better. Your enjoyment of nature and the world will be better, because you have chosen to be glad and
Mhm.
rejoice.
And that's good because you can choose regardless, because we're not promised 2021 is going to be any better than 2020. And you know,
That's,
for me personally, I had a great year in 2020.
well, I had a,
I felt like, my relationship with Christ and just being more solidified as a man just was great. And it's all about how you look at things and how you're perceiving things, and you need to make sure that you're perceiving them from God's perspective.
yeah. Well, every terrible situation is an opportunity for each one of us to do something, and it can be something very small, to lift somebody else up
Mhm.
or encourage somebody else. You run across somebody who's down in the dumps because of the COVID and they're feeling terrible about it.
Yeah.
Just a positive word to them, an
Hmm.
encouraging word to them, a word of how much you might enjoy their company or how much you miss them and are looking
Yeah.
forward to the days when we can be together again.
Goes a long way.
There's all kinds of little things that you can do each day. And that's one of the joys even during this past year of 2020, with all the things that have happened,
Yeah.
things that if I personally could change them, I'd change a lot of things.
Hmm.
I'd get rid of COVID overnight if I could do that, but I can't. What I can do, however, is not only rejoice and be glad in the day, but I also try to ask God, what can I do today?
Yeah.
What can I do today?
And what's great is, you have joy because you're eternally secure. You know where you're going.
People might think I'm foolish, but I know that I'm going to live forever.
Yeah.
Not because of something that I did, not because I'm great or
No,
smarter or stronger or whatever,
because of Jesus.
but because that's what Jesus has said will happen to those who come to him.
In fact, because you have faith. You want to know what Noah Webster? I got this for Christmas.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the 1828 version of Webster's dictionary, the first version.
The
This
original.
is so good. You want to know what he says about faith?
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
is good. He says, I'll read this and then I'll give my piece of advice too.
Okay. Watch your time. Thank you.
It's good. I can edit that part out.
Yeah.
Okay. Faith, as Webster says, is the faith is the assent of the mind to the truth of what is declared by another, resting on his authority and veracity without other evidence. The judgment that what another states or testifies is the truth. And then he says, it is the assent of the mind to the truth of the divine revelation on the authority of God's testimony, accompanied with a cordial assent of the will or approbation of the heart, an entire confidence or trust in God's character and declarations, and in the character and doctrines of Christ, with a unreserved surrender of the will to his guidance and dependence on his merits for salvation. Well, how's that for a definition of faith? Wasn't that great?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Especially trusting the authority and the truthfulness of the one that you put your faith in.
Exactly.
That's the basis of what we're doing with our faith in Jesus.
As we head into 2021, to everybody who's subscribed and are following us on social media and who have supported us and everything, we want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you as well, and we wish nothing but the best for you in 2021. And we're excited to put out some great content for you, and content that we hope that, one, helps you understand more of God's love for you, and two, helps you be more informed so you can be better citizen in the United States and a better Christian as well.
Better person.
Mm-hmm. Better person.
Okay, son. Well, it's been joyous.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can do this virtually. I'm looking forward to the day when we can do it in person again.
Yep. So follow us, guys, on social media at Timmy Tom Show, and then subscribe. Every time you subscribe and like our videos, you tell the YouTube algorithm, hey, we like them, put them out more. So liking that, it doesn't cost you anything. Liking this video would help so much. So we love you guys, and we're going to be signing off. We'll see you for Freedom Friday 12.
Okay. God bless you. Bye-bye.
All right. Happy New Year. Bye.
Happy New Year. Ready? Yep. Get set. Go. Draw it out.
Hey, hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year coming up.